Well, hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. We are into a deep dive on the Executive MBA program at UC Irvine's Merage School of Business, and we have with us today the Dean, Ian Williamson. Welcome, Ian.
Well, thank you very much, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to see you again. You arrived not all that long ago, I guess a little over 2 years ago, right?
2021, January 1st.
Which was a crazy time to arrive, actually, right? Because we were sort of in the pandemic mode.
Very much so. And so much so that I technically could not even physically get into the United States at that
Wow.
time. So I ended up leading the school remotely from New Zealand for 6 months before I physically got here. So very much an interesting time.
That is remarkable. Now, Ian, give us your sense of the vision of the school. I know that leadership for a digitally driven world is a key part of the strategy, right?
So there are two pillars that underwrite what we do here at the Merage School. One is technology. So this leadership for a digital-driven world is really what we're signaling to the world is that our goal as a business school is to develop leaders that are comfortable sitting at this intersection between technology, commercialization, and entrepreneurship. And really what we try to do in our courses is position individuals such that when they think about major challenges in society, that they're comfortable to understand how does technology either contribute or solve this issue? What does it look like to develop solutions, hopefully using technology that are sustainable and scalable? That almost always means that it has to be built around some type of business model that is commercially viable. And if necessary, sometimes these solutions require the creation of a new organization to deliver them. And this brings us into the conversation around entrepreneurship. And so if you look at our courses, each of them have an element where there's always a conversation about technology, regardless of the discipline or the content that's being discussed. So if I teach a class on management, which is my area of expertise, we're going to talk about data analytics. We're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about how those things are shaping the way we lead and manage workforces, just as much as we would if this was an IS class or a finance class. So that's one big pillar, that we have a big focus on technology. The other pillar that underwrites what we do is our emphasis on inclusive excellence.
Right.
And for us, this is about ensuring that our business school and the education we provide is designed to ensure that it provides pathways of success for members of all communities. And this really speaks to the fact that we're in Southern California. This is an extraordinarily diverse community with people from all around the world, multiple ethnic groups represented in very large numbers. And we want to ensure that the education that we provide is a pathway of success for them. And in doing these two things, there's an interesting overlap, particularly in the technology space, because if you look at the technology sector, it is one of those sectors that struggles with representation. In fact, if you look at Black and Latinx representation, it's very low, much, much lower than the population would suggest. And so we have particularly focused in on how do we ensure that our educational experiences are actually going about addressing this broader digital divide that we see in our society.
Great. Now, obviously, the hot topic in digital is AI. You mentioned AI. How is that changing what you think you should teach and how you should teach students about artificial intelligence and how it's going to change the world?
I think it's impacting us in three ways. One, it's obviously impacting our content. And so we are, rapidly looking at ways in which we can bring new cases, new literature, new research into the classroom so that our students are able to get cutting edge understanding of how artificial intelligence is both destroying or disrupting existing business models, but also creating new business models. And one of the ways we're doing that is through cases, like live cases, working with companies that are experimenting with artificial intelligence in a wide variety of ways in their actual business, and having our students do consulting projects through their curriculum to support this learning opportunity. I mean, the reality is most of us are figuring this out as we go along, as we think about how companies are responding. So it's certainly changing the content that we have. But it's also changing the way we teach. And so from a pedagogical perspective, we're engaging in experimentation around how do we use AI in terms of the student experience. And so you had a wide variety of perspectives around the world in terms of should students be using artificial intelligence in their curriculum, in their assessment. Some systems have banned it. You know, the New York City system had a decision to remove that for their K through 12 programs. We have certainly taken the opposite approach. This is going to be a tool that people will have in their workplace. We want our educational experience to mirror what people do when they get in a job. So
Good
we're
point.
experimenting with how do we have students use this as part of the evaluation process? And that's changing the way we evaluate so that it incorporates the use of artificial intelligence as part of the assignment. So telling students, here's an assignment, run it through ChatGPT, evaluate the feedback you receive. How would you improve it? What would you add on top of it? So let's use that as the baseline of the assessment, and then you add on, which I think is exactly how people are going to experience it in work. And then thirdly, it's actually changing the way we work operationally, administratively. So just one example, we're experimenting now with how do we create AI-based chatbots that can support student experience and advising for our students here at the university. So it's like every other sector, it's going to have a profound effect. I hope what we're trying to do is be proactive and lean in on this so that our research, our curriculum, as well as our actual operations benefited from it in very positive ways.
So Ian, it sounds like you have a very upbeat assessment of AI. I've actually heard a business school dean tell me that maybe they should go back to pen and paper exams.
Well, you know, I will tell you, I was at a meeting recently and I was talking to someone about this, and they said, you know what you're going to end up doing? You're going to end up going back to oral exams. And I said, you know, what I personally view this in the way of maybe it's probably not the best analogy, but I remember early on in my career, there were professors who refused to allow students to use calculators when they were right, because they felt it important for them to understand how to do the math by hand. And the response I had was, they're never going to do the math by hand in a job. And if they did, they're probably going to get fired. So let's be honest, that's not. And then there was the next phase, which was there were professors that said we should not allow laptops as part of the assessment. Right. And I said, well, the reality is they're never going to do anything without spell check ever again.
Totally.
And if they did, they probably get fired.
Yeah, really good point.
And so I think what's going to happen here is just the baseline has improved, right? And what we've done with those previous technologies, we've taken away some of the fundamental aspects of the deliverable, you know, calculation, spell check, access to information. But in each time we did that, what we did was we highlighted the conceptual skill. So that became the differentiator. It wasn't that I could do math. It wasn't that I could spell correctly. It became that I can actually understand which words to use. Now what we're using with artificial intelligence is we're giving, if you like, a baseline of which words to use. And we're moving up the chain where now the bigger questions, the bigger issue will be, do we understand which questions to ask? And so I feel like this is just a natural evolution of where value is created and what is actually valuable and unique about what people contribute. So we want to be able to prepare people for that. It doesn't change the need for the education. It gives us more time to focus on the conceptual skill sets, which I still think is a huge differentiator for individuals.
So true. I want to come back to your second pillar, inclusive excellence. We just had a Supreme Court decision that banned race conscious admissions. We know that in California and Michigan, this happened long ago. What's your sense of all that, and how does that complicate, you know, crafting classes that are diverse and inclusive?
Well, we have a little bit of history here in California with this.
Yes.
So, I think our history
Sadly
could give some guidance to others around the country as they think about this. So when we came over Prop 209 in 1996, the immediate impact was a dramatic decrease in the diversity of the cohorts in the UC system. Very clear, very evident. And that was a very strong, long-lasting impact, years. And what it took for us as a system to really think hard around how do we think about engaging with communities that we're currently not effectively engaging with. And part of that became a story around the actual engagement with community to make us attractive as an institution to those communities.
Mm,
But it also forced us to think very hard about the selection criteria we were using, because what oftentimes is not clearly talked about is oftentimes one of the reasons why you're seeing these discrepancies is that the selection criteria you're using for admission are highly correlated with other forms of discriminatory practice. So for example, we know that there's very clear differences around ethnic groups in performance on standardized tests like ACT, SAT. It's been clearly delineated. And we also know that those tests historically have not been great predictors of academic performance for the students
true,
as they go through their degree.
true.
So what this prompted us as a system to say is, well, why are we using them? And the UC system no longer uses those. It doesn't even allow you to submit them as part of your application for undergraduate admission. We have experimented with then taking those standardized tests and making them optional or removing them from our admissions processes at the graduate level. And what we found is that when we've done that, it's actually dramatically increased the number of students from a wide variety of communities that apply. So I think it really forced us to begin deconstructing what were some of the systematic bias that we already had in the system. The race-based or gender-based admission criteria we were putting in were basically trying to overcome that. And this forced us to do the hard work of saying, well, actually, let's go back to the source. And I'm proud to say that we've been able to recoup a lot of those losses. It took a lot of effort and time. We are back to a point where we're getting to levels that are above where we were in 2006. But it really forced us to think hard about this. And now, of course, what we're thinking about is what are some of the other areas of disadvantage that our students are experiencing that doesn't allow us to get a full representation.
Right.
I'm really proud about the fact that over 40% of the students we have in our business school are first and family students, first and family to go to college.
Wow.
And that is a very deliberate effort by us to actually think hard about what do we need to do to create success factors for all communities. And I think this is where the work is going to be going forward.
Yeah, that's terrific. We talked about AI, and of course, AI is an important element in the future of work. But I wonder, in more general terms, how your business school is preparing students for that future.
You know, this is something I've spent a lot of time thinking about for us. And as I discussed before, we have faculty who are leading the charge on the research around this. That's the pillar, right? So we are a research one institution. When our students come to study here, they're going to have opportunity to work with the creators of the insight, right? The actual researchers. And so we've been really focused heavily on recruiting faculty who have this as part of their repertoire. We recently hired 2 experts in fintech, specifically to develop that expertise and also develop that in our curriculum. So that's one aspect of it. But the technical aspects of understanding how to use AI is one big component, but there's another component, which is the ethical components.
True.
Like any technology, the way it is used ultimately goes back to the judgment of the crass person using it. And we last year, for the first time, offered an AI ethics class to our students. And we brought in an individual from industry to teach this, because it's really important for me to have students understanding it's not just the nuts and bolts of how to use the tool. What is the context in which you're using this tool? And there's a lot of red flags and a lot of concerns, I think justifiably so, that we have sped ahead with the tool without necessarily having the ethical frameworks to understand the contexts in which this should be used. And if we don't address that side of the camp, we will put ourselves in a position where we have a tool that is probably bringing out the worst in us as individuals, as opposed to bringing out the best in us. And so we're trying to do both. We're trying to create content and curriculum that in our programs that is certainly giving people the tools that they need to understand this capability, but also equally so the frameworks conceptually as well as ethically to understand when and why.
And I'm thinking that even though you're not in Silicon Valley, you have an advantage in your location, because there is a lot of innovation going on in your area of the world, in California.
We're Silicon Beach.
Right, exactly.
I think one of the great things about the Merage School is that we do have a locational advantage. We have an amazing business sector surrounding us, and particularly strong in some very critical areas. So this is a global hub for med tech and health tech. We have some amazing companies here. Edwards Life Sciences based here. J&J, Johnson & Johnson has a huge operations here. Medtronic has a major presence here. And then there's some amazing up and coming startups that are in the health tech and med tech space. Companies like CathWorks, which recently was purchased by Medtronic for over $500 million. Organizations like Tarsus. These are all literally down the street from us, and we engage with them very closely. So that gives us a sense as to what's happening. But it's not just in the health tech space. This is a huge hub for sustainability, particularly electric vehicles. So we have Karma, we have Rivian, we have Lordstown Motors, we have battery manufacturers right down the street. And then, of course, this is also a gigantic space for artificial intelligence and machine learning. Companies like Experian are here. This is one of the largest information technology data analytics companies on the planet. Their North American operations, which is over 60% of their business globally, is based here. They are on our advisory board. So I think that is an advantage. Every team wants a home court advantage. I think we get a little bit of that just because we have such a vibrant business community right next to us.
And your location helps in terms of attracting fantastic faculty, students, giving your faculty a great place to do their research, besides peers in their industry. And you have a number of centers of excellence as well to make that all happen, right?
It does. So we have a Center for Healthcare Management and Policy that naturally leads into the healthcare, the health tech spaces that we have here. I should say healthcare is the largest employer in Orange County. So it's not just clinical delivery, it's the medical device companies, it's the data analytics companies. So more and more work now in precision health, which bridges data analytics with healthcare. And so we're seeing a lot of innovative firms there. We have a Center for Digital Transformation, which obviously lends itself well to some of the artificial intelligence, machine learning work that's going on here, as well as virtual reality. We have several firms that are cutting edge in that space as well. And we have a Center for Investment and Wealth Management that naturally lends itself to the fintech evolution that you're seeing around us. Last estimate I saw, we have between LA and San Diego, there's roughly 400 fintech firms.
Wow.
So this is burgeoning, and that naturally becomes a nice space. Even our Center for Real Estate, real estate is being digitally disrupted in a major way. CoreLogic has a big facility based here. And so it's nice, right? From a research perspective, you have your laboratory real live. From a career perspective for our students, we know that a large percentage of our students, the majority, end up taking jobs in this region, which is phenomenal mainly because this region is such a robust employer. Yep.
And then your executive MBA program. Tell us what's special about it.
I think we have it's a unique mix where we have the scale, but it's not overwhelming. So you have the benefit of the scale of an institution like the Merage School. We have all the resources associated with that, but the program is not so large that you don't get the individualized touch. I mean, for example, I teach in that program. And it's a fantastic opportunity for me to engage with the students, and we can really create some unique experiences around that. It's also unique in that we have a very strong orientation towards healthcare. We have an explicit healthcare track, and that brings in clinicians as well as people from the industry, private sector, who are looking at medical devices. And so you get this nice focus in an area of clear global relevance, but also in a domain where we have unique local capability. And so
and a very mix of people, right? Because healthcare is so vast. I mean, there's so many areas of it. So and you're pulling from all of them, right?
Yeah, I mean, my last cohort that I had, we had doctors, we had chief nurse officers, we had people from the med tech space, we had people coming from the data analytics, health tech space, all in the same cohort.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, it's great. And we even have a segment for that group where we take them to Washington, D.C. to meet with policymakers so they understand the policy decisions that are guiding healthcare across the country. Because obviously, at the end of the day, that's a big part of this story. We have a healthcare forecast conference that all of our students are able to participate in. We've been running it now for 32 years. It draws people from all around the world to talk about what does the future of healthcare look like on all different dimensions. So I think our EMBA program is well situated to take advantage of this local advantage, the local opportunities we have, yet being able to do that in truly a global business school. Because just like they have the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C., this year we're taking that same group to Singapore. And they'll have a chance to understand, well, what does this look like in other economies, in other spaces?
That's great. Now, Ian, I think of you as like a global citizen. You got your PhD from UNC at Chapel Hill. You know, you taught at Rutgers in New Jersey, but you also taught at Melbourne Business School and the Zork Institute of Business Education in Maryland. And before you took over the deanship at Merage, you were a pro vice chancellor and dean of commerce at the Wellington School of Business and Government at Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand. I wonder what your early impressions are of both Irvine and the school since you became dean in January of 2021.
You know, whenever you take a job, you certainly do your due diligence, you do research. That is certainly what we teach our students. But I must admit, in me doing my due diligence, when I arrived, I underestimated two things that I just didn't quite appreciate. One, I underestimated the global nature of the business community here. This is the companies I've discussed as we've just gone through this conversation. These are globally relevant enterprises that are 10 minutes from campus. And I did not understand or really get my head around that and how important that is, right? By having companies that people around the world look to as examples of success. They come.
And I bet you, Ian, I bet you that a very high percentage of them, if not the majority, were founded by people who were not born in the US.
Well, that's the story of California.
Exactly.
Really, yeah, it's the story of California. This state, just to give you a sense, this is the state of innovation.
Yeah.
California has generated more patents than any other state in the United States last year. And what makes that number even more amazing is it not only was California number one, but the number of patents that California generated were more than the next 5 states combined.
Wow.
So this is the place where innovation comes to thrive. It really is. And I kind of conceptually knew that, but when I got here, I saw it, I was like, oh, I didn't really appreciate what that meant. The other thing I underestimated was the diversity of the population in Orange County. Not something that I truly appreciated, but we truly have over 50% of the people in this county speak a language other than English at home at night. We have the largest Vietnamese community in the world outside of Vietnam. Wow. We have a very large, robust Latinx community. We have a huge Korean community with very deep ties to Korea. We have a very large Chinese and Japanese community, and it's wonderful. Obviously, one of the big benefits around that is you can eat very well here. But the other great advantage around that from a business school perspective is you're able to get that type of cultural diversity and broader thinking as part of your student body. And that really is a representation. We are a Hispanic serving institution, which means over 25% of our students are Hispanic. We are an Asian American and Pacific Island serving community. We have just truly a robust collection of people, and I love that. It has allowed me to get my own version of the UN even here in Southern California.
Fantastic. Ian, I kind of feel like you belong there. You know, I mean, you're such a passionate advocate for the school and the area. I frankly can't imagine you back in New Zealand or anywhere else. You're where you belong. I'm telling you.
Well, that would suggest that the selection committee got it right.
Well, Ian, it's been a pleasure, and really, it's so exciting also to see your passion for your institution and what you're providing to all the students and the faculty. at the Merage School of Business. So congratulations on that.
Well, I appreciate that. I feel very fortunate. We have a really great story going on here. I'm very mindful. I'm the 12th person to have this job. There were 11 individuals before me that did a great job in creating a foundation that I was able to build upon. And my job is to make sure that the next 12 have even more. So we're doing some great things here. I'm really excited about what's happening right now.
Ian, you're making your mark.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. We've been speaking with Ian Williamson, who was appointed Dean of the Paul Merage School of Business in January of 2021 at UC Irvine. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. This is part of our three-part deep dive into Irvine's Executive MBA program. Check it out. Thanks for joining us.